What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. You know, Riot's lore department have written loads of interesting characters into the world of Runeterra through their relations with the champions and just all sorts of stuff, and although it's kind of necessary from just a world building perspective, it does really make you wonder if any of those champions, those mentioned characters, could end up becoming more than just a piece of the lore themselves in the future. And Riot have always said that they wouldn't really make a champion just for the lore. The champions really just have to bring something to League outside of the bio mention, but that really got me thinking about, you know, what characters do we know about, or perhaps concepts and stuff that could become champions in the future. And if you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button, because if this video hits, let's say, 5,000 ratings, I'm gonna buy myself some Korean barbecue. So first up on our list is a character that a lot of you guys might have heard about because it's Kassadin's daughter. So there's actually been a ton of buildup in the lore for Kassadin's daughter, who is actually sealed in the void at the moment according to the lore, and she was originally going to become a champion. And people thought that she was going to be Syndra actually, and now of course we know that Syndra is not Kassadin's daughter. We know they're not the same person after the release of Syndra, but it really does make you wonder if Kassadin's daughter could return from the void and become a champion in the future. She's got a lot of great story around her and a lot of potential for a really awesome gameplay kit. And you know, considering what Riot have said about lore-based characters, she would still have to bring something to the game that isn't there right now. But with the amount of story behind her and just character that's available around Kassadin's daughter, her theme would obviously, you know, have to do something with her time in the void, but honestly could just fit really well, and they could definitely come up with some really awesome gameplay tropes for her. Maybe she could be like Kassadin, kind of like a human empowered by the void, or maybe something in the void could have just completely corrupted her and brought her back as a monster, like totally unrecognizable, but like have some cool interactions with Kassadin or something and just be a completely different person. You know, she definitely couldn't be that similar to Kassadin, but she could definitely find ways to just be a lot different in general, and overall the idea of Kassadin's daughter coming into League is something that I think would be really awesome. Next up, we've got another character who is a relative to an existing champion with Kog'Maw's dad. Now, when it comes to the lore, we don't entirely know that much about Kog'Maw's dad, but we have actually been teased quite a lot that Riot might actually want to create a champion for him. And Riot Opelli said that he probably thinks that the other Voidborn champions are maybe a little bit primitive, and he was also asked if Vel'Koz would be familiar with Kog'Maw's dad, and Riot Opelli agreed that he was. That would probably be the case, and you know, that could mean that Kog'Maw's dad is maybe just another primitive Voidborn creature, but it could also mean that he's actually a lot more intelligent than you might think, you know, more similar to Vel'Koz, although probably with a lot different motivations and just a lot different of a character in general. And a lot of people have guessed if the seemingly flying creature in the Battlecast Vel'Koz splash art could perhaps be Kog'Maw's dad, and that could maybe be possible, since we know from the Monarch Kog'Maw skin that Kog'Maw himself is kind of just like this tiny little caterpillar who can't really fly just yet, and maybe that's one other possibility. And overall, there's definitely a lot of potential for Kog'Maw's dad as a character, and there's a lot of interesting ways that you could design him to make him a unique character, and in general, he definitely has some potential to be a champion in the future. Next up, we've got another character who some of you guys might know about, and it's Zelos, who's the son of an epic and famous swordsman called Master Leto, and brother to another champion in League of Legends, Aurelia. So Master Leto ended up dying from a mysterious disease in the lore, but when he passed on, he left behind Zelos and Aurelia, his son and daughter, who had been trained, you know, in the mysterious martial arts that Master Leto was renowned for. He left his unique blade to Aurelia, who of course ended up becoming crazy powerful in her own right, but we never really found out what happened to her brother Zelos, who was a part of the Ionian military. Since he was also trained by Master Leto, we can definitely assume he'd be like a fighter sort of character and just be really strong in general, although Aurelia gained a lot of her power through her struggle against the Noxians, so it's possible that Zelos might not be on the same power level as Aurelia lore-wise, but still, the lore around the factions, the locations in Ionia is really cool and interesting, and we definitely know that more Ionian champions are perhaps coming in the future, so it could be really cool to see Zelos join the roster and bring something new to the table, you know, maybe with his own development of the heightened style. And Aurelia's crazy lore power spike gave her the ability to control her blades telekinetically, so maybe Zelos has some sort of other kind of weapon or some sort of other mastery to just make him unique and just so much more awesome, and just a really awesome champion in general, and overall it's something that we could maybe see come in the future. So our next champion that we're taking a look at that could join the game one day isn't really a notable figure in the lore of League of Legends, but it's still a very interesting concept that Riot actually commented on. You know, they were asked once in a forum post about a dual type champion, maybe similar to Nidalee almost, since she's kind of like a mix between a magic caster and like a fighter or assassin, but where the focus was a lot more on the dual type sort of champion. And Riot answered that the issue with the dual type champions is that they kind of have like a huge learning curve for newer players, and they tend to either just be really powerful or really weak. Riot Ezreal also said that Swain used to be one of those dual type champions, switching between a support character and an AP DPS character. But the thing is that unless Riot can find an interesting way to keep their roles in check, it's a little bit difficult to do. But they said that another dual type champion could probably and almost certainly will be made in the future though. So I'm definitely super optimistic, and there's a ton of champions that you can kind of build in like different ways, like going full AP Cho'Gath or full tank, but imagine a character who's just so much more focused on it, you know? The really crazy stuff, like the whole idea behind this concept is when a champion's kit lets you do both at the same time, you know? This idea of a champion that swaps maybe at the press of a button or like leveling up throughout the game between an ability power DPS sort of character and supporting, or maybe switching from AP to AD is really cool because that's already like a pretty cool thing for people to do if they get kind of like stuck in the support role, I guess. Like imagine a character that could play a support role until they get to level 12, and then once they get to level 12 they start becoming like an AP mage or something based on the design of their kit. You know, it's something that could be really fun to play. Definitely would be pretty complicated like Riot said it would be, but the reason why I believe this is something that could definitely come to League of Legends in the future is the fact that it's just such a unique way to design a character, and it really mixes things up and creates this whole new sort of aspect of playing a champion, which is something that Riot really likes to do recently in their newer champions, and it's something that we could definitely see come in the future of League of Legends. Next up, we're taking a look at another character who didn't really exist in the lore, and it's more really just about the concept, and it's about a champion who uses a grappling hook as their main sort of weapon. And although Kled kind of had some sort of hook version in his character, I'm really more talking about someone who uses it as like their main weapon, their main focus. And we know for sure that this is one concept that Riot Gypsy Lord had been playing around with, sort of this idea of like a grapple hook champion who can zip to walls, or maybe other champions, you know, kind of like Spider-Man or like the soldiers from Attack on Titan, if you've ever seen that anime, something that he described. And the closest thing we kind of have so far to that is Nautilus, but he's really limited, he's very slow, and he's not really based around the ability, whereas a grapple hook champion would be someone who's super mobile, very fast, and all about the interactions they have with their grappling hook. And a weapon like a grappling hook on like a wire, where you go around hooking people and jumping all over the place, is something that could be really, really fun to play. And it's something we haven't really seen so far on a champion already, so there's a lot of possibilities for how it could work for sure. Like, you know, maybe this champion just has an ability where they wrap up a target in the wire to like snare them, or maybe they use the grappling hook to like flip over terrain and quickly ambush people from behind, or just hunt down victims and chase and do all sorts of stuff. And it could be honestly just a really fun character to play, which is something that gives it a lot of potential to exist in the future. And that's just about going to wrap up our list of champions for today that we're taking a look at that could exist in the future. You know, it's really fun to learn about like obscure characters in the lore, or maybe interesting ability concepts from Riot that might end up being in the game one day. And who knows, you know, maybe one of these characters will come to life in the future. And if you guys liked any of the ideas, or maybe you think one of them would make an awesome champion, definitely let us know in the comments below. And looks like that's going to be it for me. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.